My name is Roger Lamb. I'm a fourth generation Christian, and I've been in the banking industry for 25 years. My grandfather started a very famous paint company in Hong Kong in the 1930s, and he also co-founded a church that's based in Kowloon Tong. When I grew up, I just assumed that one day I will work in the family business and that I could always lean on the family business as a sense of security. This was true until I was 13 years old. Now, my grandfather might have been a little bit too generous. He only gave 10% of the company shares to my dad, who was running the business for him. In 1985, my granduncle and his sons, who collectively owned more shares in the company than my dad, they brought in an outsider to launch a hostile takeover on our private company. My dad tried to fight them valiantly for about a year, but in the end he narrowly lost out. So at the age of 14, I was painfully aware of a few things. That one, I had lost my birthright. We had lost the brand. My dad had to tender his shares at a not so good valuation. I was aware down to the last penny how much money my dad had in his bank account, and that I could no longer really count on my family to help me going forward. To make matters even worse, my dad felt like leaving Hong Kong since he felt there was nothing left for him to do here. So he moved our family of four to Vancouver, Canada in 1986. My world turned completely upside down. My personality completely changed. I felt that I could no longer count on my parents to help me, so I knew that I had to rely on myself. And I really wanted revenge really badly. I studied really hard. I treated all my new friends at school as enemies, really. And I felt that I had to beat everyone in order to stand a remote chance of making a name for myself and to make a lot of money to stage a comeback at some point when I grew up. So that kind of modus operandi brought me a little bit of academic success. It got me really good grades, and it helped me get into a very good university in upstate New York. When I went to university, I brought the same kind of modus operandi with me, and it was all about GPA optimization. It was not about the love of learning. So much so that it got me to graduate Phi Beta Kappa from my college, but yet I had a great deal of difficulty in getting a job in senior year, probably because my EQ was so distorted. I applied to 50 jobs. I got into the final round interviews with a lot of top-notch institutions in the world, but in the end, I got dinged by 49 of them. I think that the employers are pretty smart. They sense that there's something wrong with this kid. He's not going to fit into any of our training programs per se. There was this one job that was not in New York or Hong Kong. It was the only job that I applied in Chicago. Now, I didn't really know what trading does. I didn't really know what equity derivatives or convertible bonds were, and I've certainly never heard the term what a hedge fund was. But yet, that was how God placed me into the best possible starting salary job out of the whole Cornell in 1993. At that point, I did not really have a personal relationship with Jesus. All of my biblical knowledge was just head knowledge from going to Sunday school and going to church. And looking back, the first 10 years of my career, it was relatively smooth sailing, but probably because all I cared about was making a lot of money and getting promoted, and certainly not caring about the feelings of those around me. In 2002, I had already moved back to Hong Kong for a good number of years, and I followed my parents to Community Church Hong Kong, where I'm still worshiping today. There, I ran into an ex-colleague of mine from a Swiss bank in the mid-90s, And this lady is very interesting. Every time I see her, she would say the exact same thing. Will you come to my small group or Bible study? At that point, I wasn't exactly comfortable with the idea of being part of a small group or Bible study. So every time I see her, I would make up an excuse saying that I'm busy or I'm traveling next week, so on and so forth. A year later, in 2003, the year that SARS hit Hong Kong really hard, within a 24-hour period, I had two personal tragedies, one over my work life and then the other over my personal relationship side. I felt so down, so depressed that I felt probably worse than I did when I was 14 when I lost the family business. Probably because at 14 I was just an innocent bystander, I was just a victim. But by the time I was 31 and I had achieved some success, I thought that I was able to do it all, on my own, and that I could count on myself. But even then, it failed. So that's probably why I felt so depressed. So I went to church that Sunday, and who do I run into? That same lady from the Swiss bank from the mid-90s. And what was the first thing that flew out of her mouth? Will you come to my small group or Bible study? At that point, I was thinking, Roger, you're down in the pits already. You've lost everything. What can be so scary about this Bible study or small group? So to that lady's surprise, to my own surprise, I said to her, when is it? Where is it? I'll be there. So going to the life group is a major change for me. Once I got to the life group, I found out two things. Number one, the people at the Bible study, they're no saints either. Number two, that my Bible knowledge was really actually not so bad. I was probably, at least 50 percentile, probably because I'd gone to church all my life and some of them were relatively new believers. One of the biggest impact it had on me was the fact that for the first time in my life, I had to pay attention and listen to other people's problems and not just focus on myself. This is a huge departure from my previous narcissistic existence, where all I cared about was my own being and et cetera, et cetera. Another big change that helped me become a better person, really, is the fact that the small group organized some outreach activities, and I still vividly remember going to visit this elderly gentleman's home for the first time. He just checked out of a hospice, meaning that his health was really not so good, and he was living by himself. No one was there to take care of him, and he was living in this small, not so nice of a place, really. All I had with me was a small little care bag with some goodies in it, and all I did was, have a cup of tea with him and chatted with him for about 15 minutes. And yet, he was so happy. And that really started to change my heart from a heart of stone to a heart of flesh. It gave me so much joy that I was able to make him happy. And that started to alter my definition of success. It was no longer exclusively about making money and getting promoted.